It looks like we have one person out today, Jason. So Tim sat last time. Olivia, would you like to sit tonight? Great. Okay, so it is 7:01 p.m. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the East Lyme Planning Commission for Tuesday, February 14th to order. I'm going to do a quick roll call before the pledge. Nicole Davison? Here. Rich Gordon?
Here.
Kirk Scott?
Here.
Michelle Williams is here. Tom Fitting?
I'm here.
And Olivia Fairchild? Here. Okay, let's do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any additions to the agenda tonight? Okay, hearing none. We're going to go ahead and move into public delegations. So this is a time that members of the public are invited to come up and speak to us, with a couple of exceptions. We cannot talk about items, referrals, or applications subject to a decision by the Commission, anything that's under public hearing or in litigation. During delegations, the members of the Commission will not directly answer questions or make comment. But we do value hearing from you. Is anybody here for public delegations? Okay. Moving on to reports. Gary, do we have any communications?
Other than the Commissioner Land Use Training Program that the Connecticut Bar Association is putting on in March, I think it's 11th. Mm-hmm. That will be the mandatory training for our commissioners. So it should satisfy the statutory requirement. So if you don't go, most likely you'll have to reimburse the town. So I strongly encourage you all to attend.
Thank you for coordinating that. It's a great training. I think we've all been at least once, but I'm sure we'll pick up something new this next time, as we always do. Zoning representative, the last zoning meeting had been canceled, and I believe the next one is this week. Am I correct in that?
Zoning? Not 100% certain, but...
Yeah.
Is it canceled? Yeah.
Okay. Ex officio report. Mr. Weber.
Nothing new tonight. We've just been talking about the same types of things we've been talking about. EVs and budgets and budgets and budgets.
How are the budgets? All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Planning director's report. Mr. Gaishel.
Well, on the back of budgets, I'll just report that next week, Wednesday, the 22nd, I will be presenting to the Board of Selectmen the Planning Department budget. So we'll see how it goes. We're also discussing some capital improvements with software and things like that. So it may prompt us to take a look at our fee schedule.
Okay.
It's been a while. It's been, I think, over 10 years since we've updated it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Nothing new coming out of the Plan of Conservation and Development Implementation Subcommittee. So I'll move right into the chair report. And as part of this section of the agenda, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge one of the faces that we always see smiling back at us from the wall here, and that is Beth Hogan, who recently passed away after a very long and spirited battle with cancer. I know that her mark on the town will never be fully realized because it was so huge, and I know that she is directly responsible for a number of us sitting here at the table tonight. And as her friend, as someone who is very grateful to her both as a public servant and as a resident of this town, I'd just like to have a quick moment of silence for Beth. Thank you. No other items from me tonight. If we could move on to approval of the minutes. We should have, as posted on the website, our minutes from our last meeting, which was January 25th. Anyone have motion or comment on those minutes?
I submit a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Rich. Anyone like to second?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor of approving the minutes from January 25th, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain?
Aye.
Okay, Nicole and Kirk abstain. Motion carries. Thank you all. Okay, we do not have a public hearing tonight, so we will move in to our subdivisions. The first, are these, just a quick question, do we want to talk about both of these items together, or are they two separately distinct, 1 and 2?
They're two separate, distinct applications. I think both relate to one another. I'll leave it to the
How would you
legal
like us
counsel
to
do the
proceed?
town-
I was going to address 7A first.
Okay.
And then go to the subdivision after, because I think
Great.
7A is a bit easier.
Fantastic. So let's move on to 7A, which is the application of Kristen T. Clark, P.E., of Hathaway Farm LLC. She's the applicant owner for lot line revision at property located at Hathaway Road, East Lyme Assessors Map 35.0, Lot 23, and 25 Hathaway Road, Assessors Map 35.0, Lot 25. So, welcome, and who will we be hearing from
You're
first?
going to hear from Mr. Lewis first, which represents the East Lyme Land Trust, now the current owner of the property that's subject to the application.
Okay,
Under 7B.
okay,
I'll explain that when I get up.
okay, all right.
My name is Ron Lewich. I live at 17 Eden Lane, East Lyme. I am currently the president of the East Lyme Land Trust, who is the property owner that has 2 matters on the agenda this evening. Before I turn this over to our attorney, Paul Garrity, I wanted to make a few brief remarks. Over the past 2 years, the East Lyme Land Trust has acquired and protected forever over 350 acres of land for the citizens of East Lyme. This land was chosen primarily to protect the aquifer and to protect the water, the drinking water for East Lyme. This came at a cost to us of over $2 million, not a penny of which came from the town of East Lyme. This acreage does not even include the 115-acre Hathaway property farm that we acquired in September of last year, that we have purchased, but have not yet been able to protect as yet due to standard restrictions contained in our purchase money mortgage. The merits before you this evening will result in our protecting another 15 acres from development in the case of the lot line revision and the ability to pay down on our acquisition debt in the case of the land being subdivided. The details in obtaining these very minor land use approvals will have negative effects on both our ability to protect more of the Hathaway property and to pay off down on our outstanding debt. As we believe you are all aware, we have repeatedly, and I emphasize repeatedly, asked the Board of Selectmen for the town's economic assistance to protect this property from development to no avail. In fact, instead of being appreciative of our efforts on behalf of the citizens of East Lyme, the Land Trust has been treated rather badly by Mr. Seeley and the Board of Selectmen, whom have been elected to the, in lieu of providing assistance, chosen to actually interfere with our efforts in the matter of calculating and, we believe, unlawful manner, including making numerous false and materially misleading claims, amongst others, to the State of Connecticut Attorney General. While we accept that we are on our own with regard to the outstanding debt we took on to acquire the Hathaway property, it would appear that the roadblocks being put by the town staff with our land use applications is part of the Board of Selectmen's calculated effort to ensure we fail. Events like the January 25th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, where the commission failed to follow to follow their own regulations and deny us due process, is quite disturbing. Mr. Geshner's stonewalling the signing of the Mylars for the lot line transfers, lot line revisions, is totally inappropriate. We don't believe most of you are aware that it's really going on, but as Attorney Garrity takes you through our pending application this evening, I ask you to listen very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand out the handout that I'm going to give you relates to item B on here, but I'll hand it out now so that you probably have a chance to look at it as we're going along. My understanding is that, well, there was an email sent today regarding the lot line revision directly from my client. I'm going to go through that in just a moment. With regard to the lot line revision, the issue that's on the agenda tonight is not necessarily something that would otherwise be for the purview of this commission. And what I mean by that is, last year, the lot line revision was submitted to Mr. Gaishel in March of 2022. Subsequent to that, and as part of the requirements, it goes to Ledgelight. Ledgelight asked for, on the larger 115-acre piece, demonstration of a B100 qualifying septic system. That was then, the plan was then revised, submitted to Ledgelight, and in June, Ledgelight approved the revised submission of the plan, which included the approved septic system on it. That went back to Mr. Gaishel with the approval from Ledgelight, and in June of 2022, Mr. Gaishel signed off on the lot line revision on the Hathaway estate piece, and there is a memo in the file to that effect. But and I think, Madam Chair, you may have raised that issue in the meeting on the 25th, because I believe the date of the approval was August, or the date of, excuse me, withdrawn. I'm mixing up my.
That's okay.
I gotta get the right profile here. But there's nothing essentially for this commission to determine with respect to the lot line revision, because under 4-7-1, the regulations say that the planning director may approve a lot line revision, and it needn't go to the commission unless the planning director believes that it will somehow impact off-site properties. And obviously, if he approved it and didn't send it to this board, then that lot line revision is approved at this point in time. So it's really not even an issue before the commission with regard to item 7A that's on the agenda. The only issue is when we might see executed Mylars for that. We haven't received executed Mylars to record, which was one of the issues that were raised in relation to the subdivision application itself. We've had nothing to record, not because the applicant hasn't been able to do it, it's because the applicant doesn't have the signed Mylars to record. So the only thing we would be asking of Mr. Gaishel tonight would be a timeframe for when we would be able to get that Mylar signed and so that we could record it.
Can I stop you here and summarize to make sure that we're all on the same page?
Sure.
So what I think that I heard you just say was that this lot line revision was approved last summer, June.
Correct.
But the Mylars have not been filed, which is why the lot lines, that's where we're running into some confusion, right? The lot lines on the plan,
So in regards to the lot line revision, the milers that were submitted do not match the paper copies that I approved. They're two different plans. One shows a 25-foot easement to a 3.4 plus or minus acre lot that fronts on Lake Patagoncet. The Mylar show a whole, actual like land that would be part of that 3.4 acre piece. So the plan I approved had a 25-foot wide easement, not a 50-foot wide strip of land accessing 3 acres. So that was the primary concern.
right?
Right. But that 25-foot easement is to the lot that was the free split and doesn't affect the lot line revision for the Hathaway Estate parcel. And just so the commission has some background on that, when it was originally proposed, as you're aware, we have the land trust has a pending application with DEEP for grant money. You have to submit a survey of the entire property to them, any pieces that are going to be retained or modified. As part of when it was originally submitted to DEEP, because I haven't been involved in the day-to-day on that, but when it was originally submitted, it showed an easement to the free split property, which would have been on the piece that DEEP was going to receive. DEEP said no to that. It's either in unencumbered or it's out completely. They just don't want to have to deal with somebody else who may have some rights into their property. So on the plan that was ultimately submitted there, it's shown as a fee interest, essentially a driveway to the free split parcel instead of an easement. That's the only difference. It doesn't take away anything from the Hathaway Estate piece or the larger 115 acres that are being retained for purposes of the conservation easement with DEP.
And when you say was submitted, do you mean submitted to this commission or submitted to DEEP?
When it was submitted to DEEP, it initially showed it as an easement. The plan that I believe Mr. Gaishel has now shows it as a driveway to the free, as part of the free split parcel. I shouldn't say to it. It's in fee, so it's essentially looks like a flag lot.
Right.
So I guess my question is, the revised plan should have been submitted as part of the application, in my opinion, that there was a change by DEEP. I mean, I would have known otherwise. The other issue is on the free split. I do have a question as far as the Hathaway Estate itself, where the barn and the house are. When was that cut out of the overall piece? Was that prior to the enactment of subdivision regulation, or was that?
Yes. My recollection is that the Hathaway Estate parcel, which was Stephen Hathaway's house, was carved out prior to the adoption of subdivision regulations. What Mr. Stephen Hathaway did subsequent at some point was to carve off a piece of the land that he had and subdivide that. That was that's off of it's Upper Patagonia, so I should know what street that is there.
So on the east side of, let's say, Lake Patagoncet River, if you will, if it goes up through the Lake Patagoncet. So on the east side of that, meaning it would front on Upper Pat.
Right, where it fronts on Upper Pat. I'm looking at the deed right now. That was 1947 for that, so that was
Okay.
Predates the.
And the house and the barn and that piece that's in the middle, which is subject to the lot line revision, was also prior to 1952.
Correct.
Okay. And we have documentation of that, yes? Or we can get it?
You can get the documentation, that certainly I can provide it. Well, it's in the application packet that was submitted.
Tonight's packet?
Tonight's packet.
Okay.
Not in the one I just gave you, but in the one,
That Kristen emailed over today?
yes, correct.
Okay.
And that is, let me just see what the exhibit is in there. Exhibit 4. Okay, I'm mistaken. It's in the package that I handed out.
Okay. All right, it looks like perhaps we're talking about Exhibit J in your packet. First cut free split of Hathaway Farm LLC. Does that sound right to you?
No, looking at my exhibits are numbered.
Yeah, that's CJ.
It
These
would
are
be
lettered.
Is Exhibit 4 in that packet?
Exhibit 4 is in,
That's a committee deed.
Okay, all right. I think it is 4 and J. It's J on your cover letter, but 4
Oh,
in
the,
real life. Oh. So, I'm pretty far in. I'm looking at committee deed, right here after Exhibit 4.
I apologize because there are other exhibits that are labeled with letters, but they have numerical attachments to them.
Okay.
So let me just get to that, but I believe it is J. It is behind the, it's Exhibit 6 in the package I handed to you. Excuse me, not the package I handed to you. It's in the email that was submitted today.
Okay. Can you help me out with that again?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm reading through it. So it's Exhibit 6 of the package I handed out tonight.
Okay.
I apologize. And it is the quitclaim deed at volume 46, page 280,
Got it.
dated 1947.
Okay. Would it be possible to pull this up on our screen in map form, even just as it currently exists, Gary? So this quitclaim deed, we're talking about the barn
The house.
first cut.
First cut.
Okay. And there have not been any cuts since that.
Since 1947.
Right.
What they're claiming, yes. I don't know definitively, but I have a copy of that deed with the lot line revision that was submitted. So, short of additional title searching.
Okay.
I'd have to rely on that which is provided in the record.
Okay. Okay.
So, so, so it was approved back in June. So I don't think there's anything this commission needs to do. If there's a modification to the site or to the plan itself to say this is a road instead of an easement, that's easily done. I just need to know that so I can tell our surveyor to make the appropriate change.
Very well. I mean, there's nothing, as you've indicated, there's nothing wrong with the change. It's just the application. We need the paper copy theoretically, and then we can approve that. I'd reissue a new letter referencing the appropriate plan and the revised date.
And this is for the lot line revision. So for the lot line revision, Attorney Garrity is going to submit a revised application that matches
A revised plan.
a revised
Sure.
plan. Sorry,
right.
that was a big goof on my part.
That's all right.
Revised plan, which will kind of indicate in text, get us to the Mylars, which were inconsistent with the first approved plan.
Correct.
Okay, so we're good there.
Okay.
And I will execute
Are you comfortable with
those-
that?
Yes, and I will execute those immediately.
Okay. Okay. So for purposes of the rest of the meeting, we will go on kind of the version of the submitted but not yet filed Mylars. Yes?
It would be based on that, yes, because in theory, the proposed subdivision contemplates that lot line revision having occurred.
Okay.
Again, the question there I would have is if the commission approved said plan showing the change, would that be all wrapped up under one action?
I don't, I think just because I'll jump ahead a little bit to the subdivision. We submitted tonight revisions to the subdivision plans that Mr. Gaishel was looking for, so I wouldn't want to tie the two together. I would
Okay.
like to get the Mylar issue resolved, go forward with that, and then I'll explain why we think we can continue the hearing on the subdivision in a moment.
All right. Understood.
So that would resolve the issue with the lot line revision?
Yes. So you're comfortable.
I just
it
need a
sounds-
revised plan saying the plan's changed and this is why.
Okay.
And it's still a lot line revision and doesn't constitute a subdivision or re-subdivision. As
Yep.
long as we can determine that, I can take and execute the Mylars that I have, assuming the paper copy and the change, right, is
Okay.
filed in the file. I have no record of a change being had. So that's, I
Okay.
think, was the issue.
Everybody's on the same page
Fair
now,
enough.
though.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Fantastic. And since that falls outside of the purview of our commission, I don't think we need additional discussion on it, but does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right.
All right.
Letter B.
Now to the easy stuff.
Bring it on. Let
Yeah.
me, I'll just for the record state that now we're moving on to 7B, the application of Kristen T. Clark, PE, for East Lyme Land Trust, Inc. for a 3-lot subdivision and waivers of Section 6-8-7 stormwater management requirements and Section 5-2-2, 8, preliminary resource impact and conservation plan of the East Lyme subdivision regulations at property located at Hathaway Road, East Lyme Assessor's Map 35.0, Lot 23, Hathaway Farm Subdivision, Phase 1. So I think probably we should discuss first your memo to us. On the 25th, this commission found the application to be incomplete, and you pointed out to us that per our own regulations, we should have offered you an opportunity to withdraw, amend, I don't know what is the right word I'm searching for here. Withdraw the application due to incompleteness rather than our denial of the application. So my apologies there. It looks like what we have here tonight is a pretty, a much more thorough and potentially substantially different when it comes to the waivers and such application. And I just kind of want to see from the start what you want to do as far as your plans for timeline, and how, you know, how you would like to move forward.
Sure.
Because we've got a lot of things on the table here, you know, without waivers, we don't need a public hearing, but we're on the clock.
Right.
Did you want to do an extension? Like, what would
Madam
you?
Chair, before you continue, I do think what would be imperative is to establish the date of receipt.
Yep.
There's some discrepancy between Attorney Garrity's interpretation and my own. So once we establish that date, I have due calculations for both dates, and I can tell you where we end up.
And that is a perfect segue to me doing my own mea culpa and apologizing, because when I wrote Attorney Gaishel about this, I indicated to him in there that there was a document that was projected on the screen regarding the timelines and for submission and so forth. And I said in my letter to him, I said, you know, I'm pretty sure this came from Attorney Zamarka, who's not supposed to be involved in this. I looked at the videos 4 times, and it wasn't until yesterday afternoon, looking at the video, because Mr. Gaishel was a little bit hard to hear, and I'm looking at the document that was on the screen, and I started to realize I recognized, believe it or not, the typeset in the letter, or in the document, and saw up in the upper left-hand corner at that point a number of, it said page 49 of 100 and something, and I realized it couldn't be a memo from Attorney Zamarka, because he's not going to write a memo that's long. But I couldn't. It didn't make it into the record. I turned around, pulled out my Ziska handbook, and sure enough, and then went back and listened to tape, and I heard Mr. Gaishel say, "It's from Mike Ziska." And so I apologize for getting that wrong. I apologize to Mr. Gaishel for that. But I had said, look, you can't have Mr. Zamarka involved in this, and he said he wasn't. And I said, okay. And then in looking at that, I realized I got it wrong. So that leads me into the timing on this. Because I'm going to submit, or I'm going to submit now, the waiver request from the withdrawal of the waiver request. We don't need a public hearing based on the waivers, and this is a first cut on the property. So we would not need a public hearing on this. In terms of establishing the timeline on this, my understanding and looking at the regulations again is that at your meeting on the 18th, it's the next regularly scheduled meeting, that would have been the date it would be deemed submitted or accepted by the commission, and start the clock running from that date. So we'd have 65 days from the January 18th meeting in order to conclude the hearing on this.
Okay. So that's where I'm at. Because
Yeah.
I think your initial letter said the 13th, even though we canceled, and then the 35 days thereafter would have been, I think, the 17th or the earlier.
Right, yeah.
You know, I think the 17th came before their meeting, because we canceled that meeting and we ended up meeting on the 25th.
Right.
It would have been a different time frame if a public hearing were ordered, but if it's not required and the commission finds that to be the case, then it's 65 days from the date of the regularly scheduled meeting of January, which is the 18th, which provides time for that. And then in that regard, my client had submitted today, that's the one that was emailed. I had a lot of things on the plate today that I was trying to contend with. That where she went through the items that Mr. Gaishel had outlined and he wanted addressed. I've submitted original plans and tonight to Mr. Gaishel along with the necessary copies on that. But most of those items that were issues on there when we set aside the lot line revision were more, I don't want to say administrative in nature, but similar to that, right? A revision date on one of the plans, the scale on the mapping and so forth, the fact that we are withdrawing the request for any waivers on that. We did the drainage calculations on that, or drainage report. We have Ms. Sportman's report from the state archaeologist. The energy efficient conservation statement is included. The additional, obviously, septic feasibility for ledge light was included on that. And so therefore, what I would ask is that the commission allow staff time to review those, make a determination and recommendation to this commission as to whether or not the application for the subdivision, 3-lot subdivision, should be approved.
So
Okay.
in
I want-
regard to the timeline, so,
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to talk about.
so if the January 17th was the date of receipt, my calculation is 65 days, 65 days thereafter would be March 22nd.
Right. So
we have
there was
ample
some
time.
mumbling of the
Yeah.
18th. We mean this, so the meeting was on the 17th, so, well,
Yeah.
the scheduled meeting, that was canceled. So it
Right,
starts
but-
the 17th, not the 18th, correct?
Regardless of whether that meeting was canceled, it was, the data receipt by statute is the next regular scheduled meeting of the commission, if you meet, or 35 days thereafter. So if you don't meet, we automatically have to accept it 35 days thereafter. So
Okay.
that is January 17th.
Okay, great. Just wanted to clarify that because I think a couple times
So
one of you
using
said the
that date, we
18th.
would have until March 22nd to render a decision on the application.
Okay.
Which resolves a number of issues, because I thought possibly it would have been the 16th. And with more ample time, revised plans, and we can continue to review.
Okay, great. So we're comfortable with that. We're all on the same page there. Yes?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I think that there was one more thing that I wanted to get clarity on before we get into details of the plan that we kind of alluded to earlier. And I just want to make sure that we're correct in what we're calling these things, right? So we have Hathaway Farm LLC applicant owner on the lot line revision. That's already taken care of because that is separate.
Correct.
And then East Lyme Land Trust is the current owner of this new property, which reflects the lot line revision that we discussed earlier.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Just a procedural, excuse me, procedural question, because I wasn't here at the meeting last time and you guys voted to find the application incomplete. Do we have to do something procedurally to address that?
Well, we are by putting it on the agenda tonight.
So-
We've recognized the fact that we failed to offer them the opportunity to withdraw. So my apologies there to the commission. That was clear in our regulations.
I just want to make
So-
sure we're doing things the right way,
So
we don't get in
by
further.
offering them their fair due process, and that we do have additional, we do have time before we have to render a decision, all is not lost. So what I probably need to do is send them correspondence indicating that the commission is recognizing the fact that I don't believe that the letter, I don't know if the letter went out on the denial yet. I think it did. I'd have to double check. If it didn't go out, well, then I won't have to necessarily send correspondence.
I mean, I would be of the position that it was void, the decision was void ab initio, so therefore it's of no force and effect, and we go right back to where we were on January 25th.
I tend to agree.
That term was void.
Void ab initio, don't ask me to spell it. But the last time I used that term, the judge ruled against me. 'Cause I
I'd
don't
like
think
to see
I don't
that
think
in
he
a
knew what it
spelling
was.
bee. Okay,
So I'm comfortable with that.
all right. Is the commission comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, Attorney Garrity, would you like to take the floor again here and walk us through anything that you'd like to walk us through prior to staff review, which we know will happen following this meeting?
Sure, I can walk you through, what we've done on here. We added, as I said, the revision dates, edited the index for the septic feasibility, added the remaining land. There was an issue, I believe, with regard to the reserve parcels on there. Again, that was all as a result of deep, because you have to be able to show deep what land is not going into the conservation easement. So we had just labeled things reserve parcel on there. The scale on the plans was revised. The revision date is done on the new plans.
Remote's in the basket.
Septic feasibility was added. The new survey shows the approved lot line revisions on there.
Got it.
One of the reasons to get the Mylar.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for one moment? We are having all kinds of
Netflix show on or something?
technical
So
here.
we want to see the picture.
There we go. Now we can see what you're talking
Okay.
about.
Great.
Just
Thank
to
you.
start
I
with,
apologize.
No problem.
Particular map you want to start with? Or?
No, this is fine. So essentially, and if I, not to jump from A to B here, but that's the driveway area. That was the part that was shown as an easement on the deep land, and they said no. in my experience, you may recall there was an easement that's going to be done away with from Hathaway Farm property down to the Lloyd parcel. But the Lloyd deed said that that could be relocated provided they were given access at that point. So deed says that easement has to go too. We were fortunate enough that their deed allowed us to relocate it. So that piece in there is what is subject to the configuration for DEEP on that. And there have been some changes and so forth, but DEEP is good with that as long as the overall area of the property doesn't change.
Okay.
And then there's the 3 lots on Scott Road. The drainage report. So I don't think there's much else that I would need to go over with that in light of the fact that my client has addressed all of that. The only issue, I think it came up, I don't recall if it was at last month's meeting or not, but is open space. And the open space for this has been based on the lots that are being proposed, but the regulations say that if it's not going to be on the entire parcel, there has to be a note on the plan that's saying any further development requires the additional open space, because that obviously has been an issue in the past that the Commission is aware of. And we would stamp the plans accordingly that any further development of the property would require additional open space under the subdivision regulations. But I believe that would more or less be it tonight. And I assume Gary doesn't have any comments because he just got everything today and I just gave him the plans.
Yeah, I mean, making the assumption, again, when I talked to the town engineer regarding the stormwater and the drainage, he didn't actually foresee any issue with the waiver of requests. But as you know, the waivers do require public hearings, and if they're able to meet the regulations without having to request the waiver, that is the preferred, obviously, approach, because it complies with the reg straight away. Again, I can't speak to the drainage here without further reviewing the town engineer's comment, if any, but I don't anticipate him having any issue with the proposal. His biggest concern when we discussed was sight lines coming from the driveways, and just to make sure that there's adequate. I do know, along that stretch of road, it's pretty flat. There is a slight grade to the north, so they'll have to just kind of look at that and just make sure there's no. I don't think they're going to anticipate. I don't anticipate any sightline issues.
And they were addressed in the revised plans too. So.
Which I figured, yeah. So with that, we can just get this out to staff review.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the minutes to just make sure there was nothing else we had questions on. And I think we've covered all of it. But I want to open up the floor to the Commission for any questions at this time.
Do you know if that note is, I can't, if that note's already on the revised plans or regarding the open space?
No,
I'd have to be
chance because I just got the plans this afternoon. So.
Okay. So we'll take a look, make sure the note's there. If it's not,
Yeah,
we can
let's
always
add
get
it.
Yeah. Won't be a problem.
Okay,
So we're in better shape than I thought, so that's great.
thank you.
Trying to make it easy so everyone can get home to their Valentine.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right, so moving forward, we'll review. We'll just table discussion for our next
yep,
regular
take this
scheduled
up at our
meeting.
next meeting. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, zoning referrals, there are none. Municipal referrals, there are none. And how are we doing on our subdivision regulation revisions?
Slow. I do have a meeting coming up with Ali Christensen and Sam Geary, trying to move those forward. He's working on wetland reg changes, and she's working on the subdivision changes. I did indicate to Ali that we should probably just fast track the ERT piece, and that's one that we can just take out. However, it does require public hearing and notice, so I'm trying to be as efficient as we can with that publication. Again, I think at this point it may be just the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
But I think she's got some other changes that we can also address. I think one in particular is the on lot line revisions. I think that's a section that should be looked at. I think, yeah, it's just, there's a few things like not being able to deny lot line revisions makes absolutely no sense, because then, when you look at some of the correspondence, it's like I can't even bring the lot line revision to the commission because the director's supposed to approve it. But if you can approve something, you should be able to deny it as well. So it really is not consistent in my opinion. So we'll take a look at that and see what we can come up with. So there's a slow. I'm hoping we have some time between now and our next meeting, and if I can get a number of those administrative changes together, we'll post a notice for a public hearing.
Okay. Fantastic. No new business tonight, which brings us to our last item, adjournment.
Make a
Motion to adjourn.
Great. I'll count that as a
I'll take a
motion and a second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done. Thank you.